A recent study seems to show that older workers are outperforming their younger counterparts. Research shows that companies that hire 50-plus workers are benefiting from a more engaged, a more loyal, a more reliable, and a less costly workforce. Joining us on the telephone is Barbara Jaworski. She is Canada's leading expert on the 50-plus workforce. She is also the author of Kaboom, How to Engage the 50-Plus Worker, and is the founder of the Workplace Institute. Barbara, good evening.
Good evening.
Appreciate you speaking with us. You, as I mentioned off the top, are an expert in this field. Do these statistics surprise you at all?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I discovered that when I was working with some of the organizations, that some organizations were really competing by hiring older workers and utilizing their skills and talent to beat their competitors. Companies like Home Depot were taking advantage of the fact that older workers were more likely to show up for work. They were interested in starting early in the morning. Of course, they didn't have families, young children, so they had the ability to start earlier in the day. And they were often being recruited from construction careers where they would have had a lot of experience in building things. And so now Home Depot was taking advantage of their skills and talents to help their customers in a retail kind of setting. So, we began to see that, they in fact discovered this quite by accident, that in fact some of their older workers were more engaged and loyal and reliable.
I mean, the reality is that for many companies, one of the most fertile recruiting grounds is right out of university. This obviously seems to turn that theory on its ear. Well,
I think that what is important for employers to remember is that you want to take advantage of the total labor pool. So, of course, you want to have younger people coming into your workplace, but at the same time, there are a lot of very skilled older workers who are also looking for employment, or you may want to make sure that you're retaining if you do have older workers. And it's important to keep in mind that older workers bring things like the fact that they need very little supervision once they understand what the job is that they need to do. They're reliable. They're a really good training investment. And we know that younger workers, of course, because they're younger and wanting to look for many different kinds of experiences, are much more likely to job hop every couple of years because they're trying to round out their resume. So, when employers are paying for the turnover costs and needing less supervision, there are quite a bit of cost savings for organizations.
So in the end, the I guess the return on that investment in that particular employee for an organization is far greater. Why is it then that in terms of the overall cost, is it because as you indicate, they're less likely to leave, but are they earning less as well, or is that not the case?
Well, I think that it depends on whether an employee has stayed with an organization for a longer period of time, and in that case, certainly they would be earning more money, and it's really because of the reduced turnover, the likelihood that, in fact, they're going to be turning up for work every day, and employers aren't going to have to be investing in recruitment and some of the other costs associated with younger workers. So, older workers are much less likely to be taking those incidental days off, needing mental health days. And in fact, they've worked out a lot of those issues in the previous 30 years of working.
The survey also seems to indicate that older workers were much more professional. They had better business knowledge and had better writing and analytical skills than younger workers. Does that say something about our education system, or is it just a product of years and years of experience experience?
Well, I think that employers are really struggling with the types of skills that younger workers are coming in with. And certainly you don't want to paint all younger workers with the same brush, but in general, the writing skills are better with older workers who are in jobs doing work where writing skills are required. And we know from university, hearing from universities that, in fact, younger individuals are struggling with making sure that their writing skills are up to scratch.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, of course, that a company like Home Depot has had a tremendous amount of success in hiring 50-plus workers. Is the trend really gaining some traction, and are other companies making this part of their hiring strategy?
Well, it's interesting because employers in general really only look towards the next quarter, and so their view of things is not generally long term, and so employers tend to react more than be very planful beyond 1 year, and so we're really in a situation where employers are going to be in a deep trouble because of the types of skills that they're going to need to make sure that their business goals get met. And we have at least 1/3 to 1/2 of the workforce that's going to be retiring in the next 10 years. And, I mean, that's a huge amount of people. And employers really need to be thinking that through. Some employers are very strategic, but others aren't. And so workforce planning is something that employers really need to be thinking about. Even though we know that older workers are interested in staying on the job and continuing to work, they may not necessarily be interested in staying with their same employer unless they get the idea that the employer's interested and wants to make an investment in them in staying.
In addition to showing that interest and making that investment so that people will in fact stay, what are some of the other strategies that companies can use, much like what Home Depot has done, to not only hire and attract but also retain those 50-plus workers? Well,
there's different things like really we use a model of engagement for older workers, and number one for older workers is flexibility. And by flexibility, I mean things like being able to work part-time, being able to start earlier, maybe job share with other people, all of the forms that flexibility takes. Not everybody's going to want the same solution for themselves, and they'll each have their own lifestyles and issues that they want to, hobbies that they may want to have, or people that they're taking care of. So flexibility is absolutely number one. The second thing is people want to continue to have training till the day they leave. When an employer looks at an older worker and says, they're not worth the investment, in fact, they really are worth the investment because they're much less likely to leave. And everybody wants career development. So understanding your path in your organization and having opportunities to have lateral moves within the organization is also quite motivating, as well as equal opportunity to apply for different jobs so that people don't feel as though there's a ceiling beyond which they won't get promoted. Adaptation in the workplace. We know that in many workplaces now they're adapting the work environment so that employees will stay longer, and in particular in hospitals, so that, for instance, nurses have less physical strain. If you're working in construction, looking at machinery that's easier to operate. As well, organizations are looking at recognition as a way of, first of all, recognizing the efforts that all employees offer, as well as showing a real appreciation for the skills that they're and experience that they're bringing. Some employees are looking for financial guidance. Others are looking for an investment in preventative health, work-life balance, communication, and cycling retirement, so that people have an opportunity to perhaps leave the organization and then come back and work on a part-time basis. And more people are also looking for meaning in their work. So those are some of the areas that employers can use to retain their older workers.
Very interesting, Barbara. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a terrific evening.
You too.
Good night.
Good night.
Barbara Jaworski is founder of the Workplace Institute. She's also the author of Kaboom, How to Engage the 50-Plus Worker and Beat the Workforce Crisis. And she is also the founder of the Best Employers Award for 50-Plus Canadians.